Welcome back to Picture Show. We're on class number 5 or week number 5. Deep cover. I thought the blanket would be a cool idea. Cover? No? Well, I just want to give a shout out to the nice person that made this. Thank you, Pascal. As of next month, made it into the Criterion Collection. That's not why I'm reviewing it. This movie has had a very large impact on me since I was a child. Some reason, my grandmother had this tape on VHS from Blockbuster. What the fuck is a Blockbuster? Well, Blockbuster was a video store that you went to and you gave them this card, they scanned it, and they knew that you had their movie, and if you didn't bring back their movie, they're gonna keep charging you these freaking late fees until you fucking bring it back.
What's that werewolf movie with E.T.'s mom in it?
The Howling, horror, straight ahead.
Okay, thanks.
Until that one time they didn't have late fees, and then that didn't work, and then they went out of business. But this is my brother's card, which was still available on 2006. That Blockbuster is now demolished, but we will always remember you. Blockbuster. Okay. 1992 is when this film came out. It has an 83% on Rotten Tomatoes, 77% based on the audience score, 83% based on the critics. Who really gives a shit? But these are numbers, you know? Numbers are important. The Internet Movie Database gives it a 6.9 out of 10. But this movie's good. Don't let this number stop you from watching the movie. This is the New Line Cinema logo that I just erased. I remember this as a kid because I'd always see it. Because you'd always see it 100 times to every single commercial trailer. And two songs that were stuck in my head as a child were the Twin Peaks theme, because Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me, not in me, was a preview for this film, as well as the song Lover Lust, the instrumental version that begins the movie.
Yeah, that felt kind of nice.
Bill Duke directed this. Bill Duke, also known for his directorial efforts as Sister Act 2, also did Hoodlums. He was in Commando, he was in Predator, as well as X-Men The Last Stand. He was Trask. I don't know if he's Bolivar Trask, because that was Peter Dinklage, but in The Last Stand he was Trask, or whatever the guy that made the Sentinels was, even though The Last Stand didn't really talk about the Sentinels. Anyway, Bill Duke, very accomplished actor and director. I think this is his second movie, maybe his third, not 100% sure. I should know these things because I'm the doctor. But, you know, it's free. What do you expect? It's like PBS, but not nearly as good. Larry Fishburne stars this movie. This is his last movie. He'd be known as Larry. Larry! I think it's also his first starring role. He would also be known as Lawrence going forward. And if you don't know who Lawrence Fishburne is...
Acclaimed for his role in Boys in the Hood, Larry Fishburne is Officer Russell Stevens.
It has Victoria Dillard as the lead female role. I don't know if she's a femme fatale or if she's a mall. She might be the mall. These are film noir terms, so no, she's not the femme fatale. Jeff Goldblum, Clarence Williams III, Gregory Sierra, and Charles Martin Smith round out this very lovely cast of wonderful actors in this wonderful film noir. That's right, I said film noir from 1992. Very different landscape, very different time period, but it is a film noir. It could also be called a neo-noir. I'm going to say noir a lot. Let's go with noir. Also, sadly, just want to give you a quick note, Clarence Williams III had just passed away recently. I think he was 81. He was a wonderful, electrifying actor. Great in almost every single movie he was in. One of my favorite roles he was in was Purple Rain with my hero Prince. It has a very dreamlike structure in this film. The movie begins on Christmas with Lawrence Fishburne and his father. Well, Lawrence Fishburne's a kid, but the kid's playing Lawrence Fishburne. Come on, it's a movie after all. He is sitting in the car. His father does some cocaine. And he asks him what he wants for Christmas, and he doesn't want anything, and he goes into the liquor store, holds it up with a gun right in front of him, while being yelled at by a Santa Claus while he's in the car, and he shows him this money and the gun. He's like, this is how the world works. Before the, the liquor store owner shoots him in the back and he dies right in his son's arms. So it kind of gives this very, very dark, brooding character of Lawrence Fishburne who we would see grow up. But this is a very film noir-y trope. The character has a very dark past, and because of his father's relation to drugs, guns, violence, alcohol, he never touched a drink and he didn't do drugs. He became a police officer in Cincinnati, and that takes place 20 years after this. Right, that's a lot of setup, right? So he's being interviewed by Charles Martin Smith, who is a DEA agent, and he wants him to go deep undercover in Los Angeles. So he goes to Los Angeles, so deep undercover, nobody knows he's a cop. He basically becomes a drug dealer working for the Drug Enforcement Agency. Wow, this is kind of odd. And then he buys the drugs, and he usually gives them to the agent. And then after a while, guy can't afford them. He's like, well, what should I do with it? You're a drug dealer. Sell drugs. So basically, he becomes exactly what he always didn't want to become. And he has to work his way up from a low-level enforcer to probably the biggest drug kingpin in Los Angeles.
I knew you'd come.
There's a thin line between catching a criminal and becoming one. Deep Cover. Directed by Bill Duke.
Los Angeles is a city known for its noir. If you've played the video game LA Noire, I mean, there's nothing more noir-y than Los Angeles. I know a lot of people think New York is always going to be the prime central for everything. There are some good New York noir, but Los Angeles, something about it with the space, crime, glitz, glamour, the Hollywood thing. LA Confidential, Blue Dahlia, or is it the Black Dahlia? Black Dahlia. The Blue Dahlia is a different movie. It is. These are all just set in Los Angeles, 1940s, 1950s. That is the classic film noir, but this is a 1992 version, updated, and it is phenomenal. Bill Duke masterfully directs this film because there's so many shots where you're just like, damn, man. You know, he had this one, there's a one cool transition where a guy walks across the screen and he changes the scene with him. So the wipe is the guy walking across the scene. I was like, this is incredible. As I said before, I'd watched this movie a lot as a kid with my brother. Never realized this was actually the first film noir I've ever watched. So watching it years later, I was in a hotel last year and there was all this TV crap with commercials, and I was just like, you know what I want to watch? I want to watch Deep Cover. And then I was putting this whole picture class together. I wanted to do it. I also forgot to mention, I think this is currently on Hulu, even though it's a New Line Cinema project, which means by default it's owned by Warner Brothers, which means by default you would think it would be on HBO Max, but if you're trying to figure out streaming rights, don't even try. You're going to be lost because I don't have a single freaking idea. But like I was saying, Deep Cover. So while he goes throughout the underworld, he comes across Jeff Goldblum, who is in a very villainous role here. He's a lawyer / drug dealer, and Jeff Goldblum gives a very, very good performance here. Him and Lawrence Fishburne really, really have this good dynamic, good dichotomy, and then they start working together. And Clarence Williams III plays a police officer who believes in Mr. Lawrence Fishburne, who is basically acting as a drug dealer, but he spends so much time acting, he starts forgetting that he's actually a police officer. But he can't tell him that he's a cop to get out of some trouble. That's where Jeff Goldblum comes, saves the day, because he's not a snitch. He's so deep undercover, even when he gets pinched on a drug deal, he can't say, well, I'm a cop, let me out. He kind of just does the appropriate thing that a deep undercover agent would do. So I'm going to say Deep Cover a lot. The soundtrack of this movie is fantastic. If you've heard this title before, it is the same as the Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg song. The single became more popular than the movie. The movie wasn't too much of a success. However, in recent years, you know, with everything coming out, and especially now it's in the Criterion Collection, which I guess people will get to re-examine it. I've always thought this is a fantastic movie, and I'm very excited that it's getting a Blu-ray release with a 4K scan. I'm considering buying it, even though I'm out of physical media, just for the interviews with Bill Duke and some critical analysis of it, other than my own, which is clearly all over the place. This is an excellent film noir. It is also one of the most powerful movies I've seen in the 1990s. There's a lot of films in the 1990s that they could have chosen from, but I've actually had a very strong liking to this film ever since I was a kid. I really recommend you give it a shot. It is not at all like other movies from its time. It is very well crafted. Not saying other movies aren't, but it's just something completely different, and it goes for this very classic theme, but very contemporary, and that's what I think works so well about it. Wonderful performances by some very fine actors here, and Lawrence Fishburne basically proves that he could carry a movie, because he'd been acting since 1979 at this point, because he was in Apocalypse Now, and he lied about his age. He had been Apocalypse Now, he'd been in The Color Purple, so he worked with Francis Ford Coppola, he had worked with Steven Spielberg, he had been working for quite a while, waiting for his big break, which, had this movie done a lot better, maybe it could have been a lot more things for Lawrence Fishburne. Lawrence Fishburne now is one of the best supporting actors. He's always in things, but he always gives more than 110%. He's one of my favorite parts of Hannibal. If you haven't watched the TV show, you should check it out. It's very good. Very gory. If it's not your thing, I understand, but phenomenal show. And yeah, so much I'm saying here. I'm too hyped up. I think I've run out of things to talk about. So give us a like if you like this. Subscribe, please. I need some subscribers. Push this algorithm. Let more people see this wonderful content. Wonderful mind. Anyway, I've been Julian. This has been Quality Attempted. This has been Picture Class. This has been a lot of things. This has been the end of a very long rant. Thank you so much for joining me. Stay tuned for next week. We're doing something a little different. I know I say that every single week, but this time is very different. I hope you'll like where I'm going to go with this. So this has been Picture Class.